In the dark silence before dawn, the skies above Yemen suddenly lit up with roaring flames and crashing thunder. It looked like a celebration from a distance, like fireworks bursting through the clouds. But this was no celebration. This was a message, loud and clear. Power had arrived. The United States had launched a massive air operation in response to increasing threats in the region, and this time, they weren't holding back. Far from public view, at a remote military base on Diego Garcia, an island in the Indian Ocean, a fleet of powerful bombers was quietly prepared. These weren't ordinary planes. They were B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, known for their ability to disappear from radar and fly deep into enemy territory without being seen. With their black, wing-like bodies and silent engines, they looked more like shadows than machines. These bombers took off under the cover of night, flying thousands of miles without being detected. Their target was clear: rebel strongholds buried underground, places where missiles and combat drones were being stored and hidden away in bunkers beneath the cities of Sana'a and Hodeidah. These weren't surface-level targets. These were reinforced, hardened locations meant to survive normal attacks. But this attack was different. Each B-2 carried bombs so heavy, they needed special design just to be flown safely. These were 30,000-pound weapons, known as bunker busters, made specifically to dig deep into the earth before exploding. When released, these bombs fell silently at first, then smashed into the ground with unbelievable force, drilling down through rock and steel, destroying everything in their path. The impact was massive. Entire underground facilities, carefully built to avoid detection and destruction, were turned into smoking craters. Drones that had been hidden for surprise attacks and missiles prepared for launch were all gone in seconds. The ground shook. Thick clouds of black smoke rose into the air, darkening the sky over the desert. It wasn't just an attack. It was a shockwave meant to remind anyone watching what true firepower looks like. But it wasn't only about destruction. It was also a warning, a reminder that advanced technology and silent precision can reach anywhere, at any time. The mission showed that hiding weapons underground won't guarantee safety anymore. Not when stealth bombers and earth-piercing bombs are in play. It was a moment that changed the game, both on the battlefield and in the minds of those planning the next move. This was more than just a military strike. It was a powerful demonstration of reach, of speed, and of a kind of power that doesn't speak loudly, but when it does, the whole world listens. It moved like a shadow, silent and unseen, cutting through the night sky without a trace. For most people on the ground, there was no warning, no sound, no sign, no alarm. And by the time they looked up, it was already too late. What passed overhead wasn't just a bomber. It was one of the most advanced aircraft ever created. The B-2 Spirit, also known as the stealth bomber, is unlike anything else in the sky. It doesn't just fly, it disappears. This plane was specially designed for one purpose: to go deep into enemy territory without ever being noticed. While most aircraft rely on speed or altitude to avoid detection, the B-2 relies on something far more powerful: invisibility. Its body has no tail, no sharp angles, and no corners that could bounce radar signals back to the enemy. Its surface is covered with materials that absorb radar waves instead of reflecting them. Even its paint helps it blend into the dark sky. On radar, it doesn't look like a plane. It barely looks like anything at all. But stealth isn't just about being invisible. It's also about being smart. The B-2 is guided by some of the most advanced computer systems in the world. These systems constantly adjust the plane's position, balance, and direction, even when flying through turbulence or dodging detection. Without a traditional tail to help steer, the aircraft uses small adjustments across its wide wings, like a bird shifting its feathers in midair. It's graceful, quiet, and calculated, almost as if it thinks for itself. And it's not just about the outside. Inside the B-2 is a flying command center. Two crew members, a pilot and a mission commander, control the entire aircraft. They sit side by side in a pressurized cockpit, surrounded by screens, communication systems, and weapon controls. They can fly for over 40 hours straight if needed, taking turns resting in small onboard sleeping quarters. They are trained for long missions, deep strikes, and precise timing. Every second counts when you're flying a machine designed to slip through the enemy's defenses. The B-2 can fly at over 50,000 feet, higher than most commercial planes, and it can also fly low, skimming just above mountains and valleys, staying hidden behind the natural shape of the Earth. Its flight path is never straight. It curves and drops and weaves, confusing radar systems that are trying to track its movement. By the time anyone realizes where it's going, the target is already gone. And when it strikes, it doesn't miss. The B-2 carries some of the world's most precise and powerful bombs, guided by satellite and GPS. These weapons are designed to hit exact locations, not just buildings, but corners of buildings, specific doors or underground rooms. When the B-2 drops a bomb, it's not guessing. It's following a plan, calculated to the inch. This is why the B-2 Spirit isn't used every day. It's saved for the missions that matter most. It's sent when the job is too risky, too deep, or too sensitive for anything else. And every time it flies, it sends a message. You may not see us coming, but we're already here. That's the power of the B-2. Not just a machine of war, but a symbol of reach, precision, and silence. In today's world, where technology moves fast and threats can come from anywhere, the B-2 reminds us that the most dangerous weapon is the one you never hear coming. They don't just fall from the sky, they pierce, crush, and shatter everything in their path. These aren't ordinary bombs. They're giants, built to defeat the one thing most people think can't be defeated, the Earth itself. When the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber flies into enemy territory, it often carries a special kind of weapon. Bombs that are not made to explode on impact, but to dig deep underground before unleashing destruction. These are the weapons that break bunkers, crack mountains, and erase what's hidden beneath layers of rock and concrete. One of the most powerful bombs ever built for this purpose is called the Massive Ordnance Penetrator, or MOP. Each bomb weighs over 30,000 pounds. That's more than the weight of a fully loaded bus. To carry just one of these weapons, you need a bomber like the B-2, specially equipped to handle such a heavy and precise payload. And sometimes the B-2 carries two of them at once. But weight alone doesn't make this bomb deadly. It's how the MOP works that makes it terrifying. Instead of exploding on the surface, it's designed to dig through the earth. Using a hardened steel casing and guided by advanced GPS, the bomb strikes the ground at high speed and drives itself more than 60 meters deep. That's deeper than a 20-story building. Only then does it detonate. When it does, the explosion doesn't just destroy what's around it. It rips apart everything in the bunker, sending shock waves through walls, floors, and anything stored inside. Why use such a powerful bomb? Because today's threats often hide underground. Rebel forces, missile systems, drones, and even entire command centers are built beneath the earth to avoid detection and survive airstrikes. Normal weapons might damage the entrance or shake the ground, but the real targets would remain untouched. That's why bombs like the MOP are used. They're not just meant to damage, they're meant to eliminate. In the recent operations over Yemen, these bombs played a central role. The underground storage sites used by rebel forces weren't basic hideouts. They were reinforced bunkers, built to withstand pressure and protect deadly equipment. Drones, anti-ship missiles, and long-range weapons supplied by foreign backers. These were not places that could be taken out with light weapons or small strikes. They required something much heavier, something exact, something unstoppable. When the B-2 dropped its payload, those bunkers didn't just collapse, they were wiped from existence. Thick concrete barriers were shattered like glass. Steel doors were thrown across rooms. Entire underground facilities that took years to build were gone in seconds. The sound of the impact echoed across the desert, followed by rising clouds of black smoke that could be seen for miles. One U.S. pilot reportedly said, "It looked like a volcano erupting from underground." And these bombs don't just work through force, they work through precision. Thanks to GPS targeting, they can strike within a margin of just a few feet. That means these bombs don't just hit the bunker, they hit the exact spot that matters most, the heart of the structure. Whether it's the weapons room, the command center, or the fuel depot, the bomb finds it and destroys it. The psychological effect of these bombs is just as powerful as the physical destruction. For enemies who hide deep underground, believing they are safe, the MOP is a reminder that no place is safe anymore, not even below the earth. When you hear that a single bomb can collapse a tunnel network, destroy reinforced walls, and make everything above it sink into the ground, you realize this is not just technology. It's a message written in fire and steel. In modern warfare, battles aren't always fought on the surface. More and more, the real threats are buried in tunnels, caves, and hardened shelters. That's why weapons like the MOP exist. They don't just target buildings. They target the illusion of safety. And when they fall, they leave no doubt behind. These are the bombs that break mountains. And when they fall, the ground itself is no longer enough to hide you. It wasn't just a single strike. It wasn't just one type of jet or one type of bomb. What happened over Yemen was a coordinated storm of precision, power, and dominance. A full demonstration of modern military strength across air, sea, and sky. It was the kind of response built not only to destroy, but to send a message that would echo far beyond the battlefield. While the B-2 Spirit silently flew its deadly missions from above, the sea rumbled with power. From U.S. Navy warships stationed in the Red Sea, long-range Tomahawk cruise missiles were launched, each one a flying spear carrying nearly 1,000 pounds of explosives. These missiles don't fly high, they fly low, skimming just above the ground or sea, weaving through terrain and dodging radar. They're designed to move like ghosts, slipping past enemy defenses and hitting their targets with pinpoint accuracy, even from over 1,000 miles away. As those missiles roared through the skies, U.S. fighter jets took to the air. F-35 Lightning IIs and F/A-18 Super Hornets launched from powerful aircraft carriers like the USS Truman and the USS Carl Vinson. These jets didn't just support the mission, they owned the skies. F-35s, with their stealth design and high-tech sensors, hunted enemy drones from long range. Using advanced radars and heat-seeking missiles, they could spot a flying target before it even knew it had been detected. In just moments, enemy drones were locked on, fired upon, and taken out of the sky before they could come close to U.S. ships or planes. The F/A-18 Super Hornets played a different but equally important role. They focused on taking out enemy radar systems and air defenses using high-speed missiles like the AGM-88H ARM. These weapons target the signals emitted by enemy radars and slam into them before the enemy can even shut them down. Once those radars were gone, the path was clear for the stealth bombers and cruise missiles to do their job without interference. The enemy was blinded and exposed, but the coordination didn't stop in the air. On the water, U.S. Navy destroyers stood ready, using high-powered radar systems that scanned the skies in all directions. When incoming threats were detected, like anti-ship missiles or suicide drones, those ships responded immediately, launching defensive missiles at speeds faster than the sound barrier. With these systems in place, nothing got through. It was a protective wall built from technology, training, and overwhelming firepower. Together, these units created a multi-layered strike, not a random attack, but a carefully planned operation where each element supported the other. The bombers struck hard and deep. The fighter jets cleared the skies. The missiles reached into enemy territory with silent precision, and the Navy ships stood guard, defending the entire operation from the sea. This was a show of force, not only for the rebels, but for any nation or group watching from afar. It was a clear demonstration of what happens when the United States decides to move, not with words, but with action. It showed that America doesn't rely on one weapon, one unit, or one strike. It brings an entire system of destruction that works together like a machine, fast, calculated, and devastating. And perhaps the most powerful part of it all? How quickly it happened. From launch to impact, many of the strikes were completed in under an hour. What took years to build, bunkers, missile sites, supply lines, was erased in minutes, and not just on one front. Targets were hit in multiple cities, on land and at sea, nearly all at once. No time to react, no time to regroup, just destruction from every direction. This kind of operation isn't just about defeating an enemy. It's about sending a signal. It tells the world, if you threaten stability, if you store weapons meant to harm civilians or attack allies, if you think hiding will keep you safe, think again. Because when the full might of modern air power, sea power, and intelligence is combined, there is nowhere left to hide. The strikes over Yemen weren't just a military operation. They were a reminder that power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers in stealth, strikes in silence, and leaves behind only smoke and silence. What happened next wasn't just defeat. It was a complete breakdown. The Houthis didn't just lose ground. They lost control. In a matter of hours, their strength was shattered. Their weapons were buried under rubble. Their drones, their missiles, their radar systems, all gone. What they thought was secure, hidden deep underground or scattered across different locations, had all been exposed and destroyed with precision. When the airstrikes began, the Houthis were caught completely off guard. Their early warning systems, if they had any that were functioning, couldn't detect the incoming stealth bombers or the low-flying cruise missiles. Their radar stations were among the first things to be hit, leaving them blind in the middle of an invisible storm. Without eyes on the sky, they didn't know where the next hit would come from. And when it came fast. The B-2 bombers tore through the heart of their infrastructure. Bunkers that stored long-range missiles were turned to ash. Underground shelters filled with Iranian-supplied drones collapsed in seconds. The explosions didn't just damage equipment. They removed entire facilities from the map. Storage depots, communication hubs, supply convoys, all erased. From the air, F-35s and F-18 moved in with surgical precision. Every missile launched was guided by real-time data, striking exactly where it was needed. Drone factories, training compounds, and key logistics centers were hit again and again. In one reported instance, an F-35 dropped a 2,000-pound smart bomb that drilled through reinforced concrete before exploding in the core of a weapons warehouse. Nothing inside survived. At sea, U.S. destroyers like the USS Gravely and USS Stout launched Tomahawk missiles that flew hundreds of miles inland, weaving through mountain ranges and valleys before slamming into their targets. These weren't just attacks, they were removals. The Houthis didn't have time to move anything. They didn't have time to respond. They barely had time to run. And while the physical destruction was overwhelming, the psychological effect was even more damaging. The Houthis thought they were ready. They had been stockpiling weapons, building underground tunnels, launching drones, and threatening U.S. ships and allies in the region. They believed their equipment, most of it backed and supplied by outside nations like Iran, would give them the upper hand. But when faced with the full force of a modern military superpower, They realized their entire system was built on fragile ground. After the attacks, satellite images showed massive craters where facilities once stood. Surveillance drones confirmed destroyed missile launchers, broken supply trucks, and empty shelters. According to military sources, over 80% of the Houthis' drone and missile capabilities were wiped out in just a few days. It wasn't a slow defeat, it was instant collapse. Even their response fell flat. After the strikes, Houthi media tried to spin the story, claiming they had downed a US MQ-9 Reaper drone. But it was just one drone, a minor moment in the face of overwhelming losses. Their social media posts became quieter. Their threats turned into vague warnings, and slowly their voice, once loud and defiant, became silent. In desperation, reports emerged that the Houthis offered to cease attacks on US ships, but only if the strikes stopped. This wasn't a negotiation, it was an admission. They knew they couldn't keep fighting at that scale. They had felt the full reach of American precision, and it left them crippled. The message was clear. Hiding underground doesn't work anymore. Threatening global trade routes or launching attacks from the shadows will bring down a force too fast to stop and too strong to survive. What began as a warning shot quickly became a lesson in military dominance. The Houthis, once confident and armed, found themselves buried beneath the very ground they thought would protect them. Their weapons, their pride, their ability to fight, all crushed beneath the weight of stealth, strategy, and absolute precision. Long before the B-2 Spirit took to the skies with its sleek shape and radar-evading skin, there was another bomber that carved its name deep into the pages of military history, a legend of steel, smoke, and staying power. That bomber is the B-52 Stratofortress, and its story isn't just one of survival, it's one of transformation. Over 70 years since it first flew, the B-52 is still soaring, not as a relic, but as a weapon of war that refuses to fade away. When the B-52 first flew in 1952, no one could have predicted that this massive jet would still be serving well into the 21st century. It was designed during the height of the Cold War, meant to fly long distances, carry heavy bombs, and deliver nuclear strikes if needed. It had no stealth coding, no cutting-edge computers, and none of the sleek curves of today's bombers. But what it did have was raw endurance, unmatched range, and a frame that could be rebuilt, rearmed, and reborn over and over again. And that's exactly what happened. Instead of retiring the B-52 like most jets of its era, the U.S. Air Force decided to upgrade it again and again. Today, the latest version of the bomber, known as the B-52H, is undergoing a complete transformation into the B-52J, a modernized machine that combines the strength of its original design with the power of today's technology. It's a perfect example of how an old warrior can still lead a new fight, not by staying the same, but by evolving with the times. At the heart of this transformation is the engine replacement program. The old engines, which were loud, fuel-hungry, and required constant maintenance, are being swapped out for brand new Rolls-Royce EF130 engines. These new engines are quieter, more reliable, and offer a massive improvement in fuel efficiency, extending the bomber's range and making it more cost-effective. In fact, with the new engines alone, the B-52 can fly farther, faster, and longer than ever before. But it's not just about what powers the plane. Inside the cockpit, the B-52 is also being completely modernized. Analog dials are being replaced with digital screens. Old radio systems are being removed and replaced with secure, high-speed satellite communication. New radar systems like the ANAPG-79 AESA are being installed. Radars that were once only found in modern fighter jets like the F-35. These radars allow the B-52 to see farther, lock onto targets faster, and operate in environments filled with electronic jamming. In simple terms, the old bomber is now smarter, sharper, and more connected than ever. One of the most surprising facts is that this aircraft, first built with slide rules and pencils, is now being prepared to carry the weapons of the future. That includes hypersonic missiles, which can fly more than 5 times the speed of sound and strike targets before the enemy can even react. It also includes the upcoming LRSO, Long-Range Standoff Nuclear Cruise Missile, which is designed to replace older systems and keep America's nuclear deterrent flexible and deadly. Despite its age, the B-52 still holds records that newer bombers haven't touched. It once flew non-stop around the world in under 46 hours, refueled in mid-air 3 times. During Operation Desert Storm, it dropped 40% of all the bombs used by coalition forces. In combat, it's been called a flying aircraft carrier because of how many different kinds of weapons it can carry, from smart bombs to anti-ship missiles to nuclear warheads. It can be loaded with over 70,000 pounds of bombs and still fly thousands of miles without touching down. And while stealth bombers like the B-2 and the future B-21 are meant to slip into enemy territory unnoticed, the B-52 serves a different role. It is the symbol of heavy firepower. It tells the enemy, we're not sneaking in, we're coming straight through, and we're bringing everything with us. But perhaps the most incredible part of the B-52 story is this. It was never supposed to last this long. Most military planes retire after a few decades. The B-52 is on track to fly for nearly 100 years. That's not because it's perfect. It's because it's been continuously improved, updated, and trusted. It has outlived presidents, outlasted wars, and outflown many of the planes that were built to replace it. In a world filled with drones, stealth jets, and satellite-guided weapons, it might seem strange that a bomber built in the 1950s is still considered one of the most important tools in the U.S. arsenal. But the B-52 has proven something very few machines ever do. When you build it right and you keep it strong, age becomes an advantage, not a weakness. So when you see a B-52 soaring overhead, it's not just a plane, it's a legacy. A reminder that strength isn't always about being the newest. Sometimes it's about being the one that never gives up. The bombs that fell over Yemen weren't just aimed at bunkers and weapons depots. They were aimed at something bigger, at fear, at deterrence, at sending a message beyond borders. And while the Houthis took the hit, there was another audience watching very closely: Iran. Make no mistake, the strikes over Yemen were not just retaliation. They were a deliberate signal to Tehran, a quiet, unspoken statement. We know what you're doing, and we can reach you. Iran has long been accused of supplying weapons, training, and intelligence to the Houthis. Missiles, drones, strategic guidance. Much of the technology found in destroyed rebel bases had clear traces of Iranian design. And yet it wasn't just about what was found. It was about what was meant to be prevented. In recent years, Iran has made headlines for advancing its underground military infrastructure, particularly in relation to its nuclear program. From the deep tunnels beneath the Natanz facility to the hidden mountainside complexes that stretch hundreds of feet below the earth, Iran has invested heavily in fortifying its most sensitive sites. These aren't simple bunkers. They're designed to survive attacks, to outlast bombs, earthquakes, and even direct hits. But what the B-2 showed in Yemen is that depth is no longer a guarantee of safety. The United States dropped massive ordnance penetrators, bombs that weigh over 30,000 pounds and can pierce over 60 meters of reinforced material. These weapons were built for exactly this purpose: to take out hardened underground targets that most other systems can't reach. In Yemen, they turned bunkers into craters. In Iran, they could do the same. The symbolism wasn't subtle. The U.S. deployed its most advanced bombers from one of its most strategic air bases in Diego Garcia, far away from American soil, yet close enough to strike at the heart of the Middle East. The fact that these bombers were used at all, despite the Houthis lacking sophisticated air defense systems, was a strategic decision, not a necessity. It was a demonstration. If we'll send B-2s for this, imagine what we'll send for something greater. And the message wasn't just about weapons, it was about reach, speed, and silence. The B-2 isn't just a stealth bomber. It's a reminder that geography offers no protection anymore. Distance means nothing. Hidden bunkers miles below ground mean nothing. If the US wants to strike, it will, and you won't see it coming until it's too late. Iran's leadership understands this. For years, it has carefully calculated its moves, pushing boundaries without crossing red lines. But the precision and speed of the Yemen strikes and the complete erasure of Houthi missile and drone capabilities in just 48 hours changed the game. If that kind of power can be used so quickly against proxy forces, what could happen to the source? Satellite images in early April 2025 revealed something else. Multiple B-2 bombers had been relocated to Diego Garcia, a highly secure base in the Indian Ocean. Reports confirmed that nearly a third of the US's B-2 fleet was stationed there, a location known for operations related to high-level strategic missions. That kind of movement doesn't happen without purpose. It's not training, it's not routine, it's preparation. Iran's response has been one of caution. Official statements were muted, but behind the scenes, reports suggest heightened security around nuclear sites, increased communication jamming, and underground facilities moving deeper into the earth. These aren't signs of confidence, they're signs of concern. And for good reason. Iran's nuclear program has reached new levels, with uranium reportedly enriched up to 83.7%, dangerously close to weapons grade. The world watches, negotiates, warns, but the clock keeps ticking. What the Yemen operation proved is that America is willing to act before a threat becomes unstoppable. The strikes were a masterclass in modern warfare, coordinated, quiet, and complete. But they were also a clear rehearsal, a message written in smoke and craters, a message that says, we're not just reacting to your allies, we're rehearsing for you. And perhaps the most powerful part of this warning wasn't the destruction itself, but how easily it was done. No American casualties, no prolonged conflict, just precision, speed, and silence. That's the real warning to Iran, not just that the US can strike, but that it can strike so fast, so deep, and so cleanly that by the time the dust clears, there may be nothing left to respond with. In this high-stakes chess game, Yemen was just a move, but the next one might not be. While the B-2 and B-52 dominate today, the future is the B-21 Raider, a next-gen stealth bomber that will be even harder to detect, cheaper to build, and deadlier than anything before. The US is preparing for whatever comes next, from underground bunkers to global threats. Whether it's Yemen, Iran, or another battlefield, these machines of war are designed to strike first, fast, and with overwhelming power.